Welcome back to the Daily Drum on WHUR and Sirius XM Channel 141. This is the Insight segment. I'm Harold Fisher. Next week will mark the 30th anniversary of the Million Man March in Washington, D.C. It was a watershed moment in the history of Black men and Black people in America. The event, organized by Minister Louis Farrakhan of the Nation of Islam, called 1 million Black men to Washington, D.C. to answer a call for unity, responsibility, and renewal. The event also gave voice to Black men about issues impacting our community. And tonight, we take a look back at that day and discuss some of the issues Black men are still facing. We are also going to share information on the events leading up to the anniversary next week, as well as the 43rd anniversary of the Anacostia Unifest. Before I introduce my guests, I just want to share a little bit about what happened on that day.
From this day forward, I will strive to love my brother as I love myself. I say your name from this day forward will strive to improve myself spiritually, morally, mentally, socially, politically, and economically for the benefit of myself, my family, and my people.
My guests are Reverend Willie Wilson, Pastor Emeritus of the Union Temple Baptist Church here in Washington, D.C. He was also a key organizer and a spiritual voice for that march 30 years ago. And he has continued to promote faith, family, and community empowerment. Also joining the conversation, Prince George's County Councilman Calvin Hawkins, who was one of the hundreds of thousands who attended 30 years ago. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining this conversation. I really appreciate you spending some time talking about this.
Good to be here.
Sure thing.
Thank you for having me.
Reverend Wilson, when you heard that excerpt of the pledge that Minister Farrakhan issued that came really at the end of the event of the day, what kind of memories does that evoke for you? What goes through your mind?
Well, first of all, it's electrifying. It's scintillating, if you will, to just hear the energy that comes through as you listen to that from all the hundreds of thousands, yea, millions of Black men that were out there, and the voice of my dear brother and friend of 48 years now, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I thought about the impact that it had and how many lives were affected by just his speech. I was talking the other day with the founder of WHUR radio station. He said to me, he said, Rev, you know, I was one of those people out here carjacking and robbing people. But when the minister gave that pledge and told us to go back home and do something, that's why WHUR radio exists today. So it was a spirit. It was a spirit, a contagion that gripped everyone who was on that National Mall on that day. And that's the feeling that I had just a moment ago listening to it.
Councilmember Harkins, same question. When you hear the snippet of that pledge, which was that pledge was actually almost 7 minutes long, but that was just a small excerpt. What went through your mind?
It took me back to that moment. I was then working with County Executive Wayne Carey. I had just finished close to 6-year prison term. But Reverend Wilson, before you came on, I was sharing with Derek for a young man who grew up in Ward 8, just in the city. We always, no matter what our religious background was, we all ran to Union Temple because it was there that when Minister Louis Farrakhan would come in town, he would always be at Union Temple, and that whole Afrocentric experience that men like myself, who was still trying to find our way, we were able to gather who we were there. And then the day of the Million Man March, as I listened, Derek and Reverend Wilson, to Minister Louis Farrakhan, it took me back to how committed I was, like the owner of React radio station, that I was going to be a part of the solution and no longer a part of the problem. That's the impact the Million Man March had on me on that particular day 30 years ago.
I wanted to share just a couple of fast facts about that day. And, because one of the things that, and I remember this, very, very well, that there was this big dispute with the Park Service, and I think it was a newspaper in Boston, where the Park Service said there were only about 400,000. A newspaper in Boston was saying that the number was pretty close to 900,000. There was an amazing sense of unity and peace. There were all kinds of discussions, and Reverend Wilson, I know you remember this, particularly well, where there was the conversation about Black women saying, well, why can't we come? And then there were questions about safety and security with all of these Black men coming to DC. When you reflect on, those kinds of things, and, first of all, did the numbers even matter?
No, the numbers did not matter. We do know that as far as the eye could see, there was a sea of Black men out there on that mall, and the spirit of the occasion is what gripped us. Someone asked me the other day, do we need another Million Man March? And my answer was unequivocally no. What we really need is the spirit of the Million Man March, that unity, that love, that togetherness, that sense of community that pervaded the air and impacted every individual who's out there. And so we didn't worry about the numbers. Of course, we do know as well, it was the largest gathering in the history to date up to that time of any gathering here in the nation's capital. And then after that came a lot of million this and a million that,
Yes.
Million women and a million, you name it. But we set the pace.
Yes, absolutely. And I think one of the other things too, which quite honestly, I thought was laughable, and this is the Black thing. We knew, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Reverend Wilson, but we knew that there was going to be no trouble there. This was, as I said, a watershed moment for Black men, for Black history. But what was the thing that surprised you most about this event?
Well, we got word, I guess, maybe about 2 weeks before the march, of these hundreds of buses that were coming in. And I expected a goodly number, but as I put the final touches on that program, I was in the hotel room at the Hilton Hotel, I think it was, and some brothers knocked on the door. And this is about 4 a.m. in the morning. They said, Rev, it's about 400,000 Black men. I don't know how they figured the numbers, but they said, we got about 400,000 men out there, and it's just 4 a.m. in the morning. And my hand began to shake as I tried to finish out that program, because I knew we were going to have a great crowd, because the number of buses that had been reported, it was coming into the city, but I didn't expect that it would be a million and a half, 2 million Black men on the mall on that day.
Yeah. Do you believe that anyone else at that time could have been able to to really pull something like this off other than Minister Farrakhan? I mean, there, certainly depending on your politics, your religious beliefs, Minister Farrakhan at that time, depending on where you were, was a controversial figure, and even for some Black people, and yet he was able to, and Black men were able to rise above any questions that they may have had about him to come to this. Your thoughts about that and the ability for him to bring so many men together?
Number one, there's no other person that I know of that could have led and brought together that number of Black men at one time in these United States and across the world, that they came not only from America's cities and states, but all across this world who came. Brother Minister Farrakhan, Black people know the truth. And Brother Minister Farrakhan speaks truth. And that resonates with the people, even for the closet, should I say, lovers and followers of Minister Farrakhan, who will not openly say how much they love him. There's a scripture that says, how beautiful are the feet of those who proclaim the truth, good news. And Brother Minister Farrakhan is one of those persons. And so, notwithstanding those who even publicly might have stated that they don't agree with them or support them for job reasons, for trying to identify with the oppressor and be all right with those who dominate and control this society, but they love Minister Farrakhan. That's the many number of times that he came to Union Temple. Sometimes the crowd would be around the corner, standing around the corner because they couldn't get in the building, just to get to within earshot to hear this great man of God speak. And so absolutely no other person that I know of, but of course it took all of us working this together. I went across the length and breadth of this country, convincing Christian religious denominational leaders to be involved. And it wasn't easy. My mentor, Dr. Dorothy Height, told me, Rev, find that one common cause. And that's what I took to those leaders. Many of them said, I don't want to be at no meeting with no Minister Farrakhan. But after I convinced them that it was about a common cause of lifting up our people at a time when we really needed to be lifted up, a lot of killing was going on of our young people, just as it is now. And out of that, that they came because a lot of times because of relationships. A lot of times I had to say, come because I'm asking you to come, and not because you love Minister Farrakhan. But after they got there, so many, the media did a great job of giving a false representation of who this man is, a beautiful man. And when people hear him, they know that he's speaking truth and they love him.
Councilmember Hawkins, you and I are the same age, and we were 31 years old, at the time. But I would argue that, that even from different perspectives, you were at home in Prince George's County. I was in Columbus, Ohio, as a TV news anchor and reporter, but the problems that Prince George's County and the DMV was experiencing were very similar to Black men across the country. What do you remember as happening in Prince George's at the time? Some of the challenges that the county was experiencing at the time.
We were still going through a transition from a predominantly white, rural, tobacco growing suburban county to more of a majority Black urban county, trying to take on what was happening in Washington, D.C., because many of the people that moved to Prince George's County lived in Washington, D.C. And for, like you said, at our age, we were still dealing with crime. We were still dealing with drugs. But what Minister Farrakhan's message and that whole day brought about, it had us looking at each other differently. It had us looking at each other, Harold, saying, how can we love each other and work together instead of always being divisive? And lastly, I would say to you, as young men like you and I were, we may, like me, I was a Christian. I went to Greater New Hope Baptist Church. However, Louis Farrakhan spoke truth. And as Reverend Wilson said, for me, someone who had been on the other side, his stature as a respected Black leader brought me to that point where I was willing to listen because he had earned that because of everything he had done.
Mm-hmm. I need to take a break, but on the other side, we're going to talk about the events that are coming up in the days leading up to the anniversary, as well as the Anacostia Unifest as well. So please stay with us. The Original Quiet Storm with Raheem Devon is next on WHUR-FM. This conversation continues on Sirius XM channel 141 and 96.3 HD2 in just a few seconds. Welcome back to the Daily Drum on Sirius XM channel 141. We continue our conversation about the upcoming 30th anniversary of the Million Man March. My guests are Reverend Willie Wilson, Pastor Emeritus of Union Temple Baptist Church in Southeast DC, and Prince George's County Councilman Calvin Hawkins. Before the break, Reverend Wilson, we were talking about some of the events that are coming up in celebration and to commemorate not just the Million Man March, but also the Anacostia Unifest. Talk to me a little bit about what's coming up over the next several days.
Okay, Harold, let me just say, first of all, these are both two iconic legacies, both of which brought our community together in unity and community, in love, and in responsibility to each other and to ourselves, first of all. So we've just simply tried to replicate that spirit with all the activities that we have going on. It started actually 2 Mondays ago. Every Monday, we have prayer at 7 a.m. in the morning. And it's been overwhelming to see all the different religions gathering together at 7 a.m. with a call that carries about 1,000 respondents, and it's just been overwhelming. Then on this coming Monday, which is Indigenous American Day, we are having the kickoff of all of the activities for that week. We're doing a torch run throughout Anacostia, which we symbolize as bringing some light to a downtrodden, dispossessed area of our city and highlighting some of the historical landmarks. That torch run will run from Union Temple to Barry Farms, one of the first self-contained Black communities in America that was started by slaves who walked across that 11th Street Bridge into Anacostia under candlelight. From there to the Anacostia Community Museum, which is at peril of being closed at this point. From there to Mosque number 4. From there to the Anacostia Library. From there to the Frederick Douglass Home. And then finally ending up back at Union Temple with prayer. This is about atonement, becoming at one with each other, just as it was in 1995. And so these two legacies both represent that kind of spirit. And so we thought to mesh the two together and bring our culture. We're going to have go-go music, gospel music, and an array of speakers from every sector of our community. The Divine Nine is going to be there. The Masons are going to be there. SCLC representation, community organizations, and it's going to be a great day. Instantly, let me say we're going to, on that day, the 18th, which is the big day, right in Anacostia. I thought not to go to Anacostia Park or to downtown to the mall, but take it right to the heart of our community. Going to cordon off about 4-block radius from Union Temple all the way down to Marion Barry Avenue. We're setting up a stage right there by the church. And that's where the big event that day will take place, where we bring everybody together. And the bottom of it all is coming together in unity, the same spirit that we had in 1995. But we're going to have some after event activities ongoing. One of them as we talk about those who would want to erase our history, we're organizing, bringing our educators and scholars together. We're putting together history to be taught via Zoom in our churches, in our fraternities, in our sororities, to our young people, to our community, so that everybody knows our history. You can't do what you can do until you understand what you did and understand the greatness of our culture and our history.
Well, I wanted to let our listeners know that there's more information online at uniontempledc.com/MMM-Unifest. That's uniontempledc.com/MMM-Unifest. Of course, we will be posting that link to our website when we post this program tonight on WHUR.com. The Million Man March and Unifest, 2 legacies, 1 purpose, faith, hope, love, atonement, unity, and community. We'll make sure that you have all of that information, because there's a lot to do. I mean, this, as you said, this started weeks ago, and there's still many, many things to come as we, lead up to the commemoration and the celebration. I want to get back to the discussion about where we were and how far we've come. When I sit back and I look at some of the pictures, Council Member Hawkins, and I see those young men, I was looking for you in the crowd. Yeah, and I think I saw about 20 or 30,000 young Calvin Hawkins,
Yes.
in the group. But do you believe that for those who were there, that it's been an entire generation that were not around at the time, that did not get that message? Do you believe that the men who were there were able to carry that message forward, or was it just kind of a flash in the pan?
One would have you believe it was just a flash in the pan, but it wasn't. It was so significant. The influence of that day. I talked to 11 elected officials around my age around the country. I'm involved in the National Association of Counties. And to hear them just talk about just being like me, 31, 32, in that crowd and taking in that moment, listening to Minister Louis Farrakhan, Reverend Wilson, and so many of our leaders, but particularly Louis Farrakhan, and to know that they went back to be a positive influence and impact on their community, and now they're serving in elected office. When you hear the mayor from Chicago and all around, these are individuals who were influenced by the Million Man March 30 years ago, and they're still fighting. They're working for programs to help our young people. So the Million Man March 30 years ago had a great impact in a positive and effective way on so many. And I agree with Reverend Wilson. We just got to keep the spirit of what it was all about and rekindle that and continue to fight what we're dealing with in this place called the United States of America.
Reverend Wilson, how do you believe that Black men have evolved over the past 30 years, particularly as it relates to, just where we are now?
Well, one thing we have to recognize is that there's been a calculated scheme to destroy young Black men in this America. We are witnessing the results now of the crack cocaine epidemic and mass incarceration, which literally ripped our families and our communities apart. And it was planned by the government. When I went to court, I guess about 2 years ago, at Rayford Edmonds' trial for release from prison, the judge asked me, Reverend Wilson, do you think Rayford Edmonds should be released. I said to him, until we prosecute Oliver North, the president of the United States, and all those individuals who sent plane load upon plane load of cocaine into America, tested it out in San Francisco, created crack in the laboratory at UCLA, and then spread it throughout the Black community, those were the real criminals. I said, until you lock them up, you need to release Rayford Edmonds. The judge shook his head and said, well, Reverend, I have to think about this. And we know what happened. He was ultimately released, but may his soul rest in peace. He didn't live long after that. So we're dealing with the aftermath of all of that. So in spite of that, we have some men out here working and fighting, trying to make a difference in our community and among our people. Ehrlichman, who was an assistant to Nixon, said, if you really want to know what really happened, it wasn't a war on drugs. It was a war on young Black males. We know that today, but some of us don't understand the repercussions in terms of our predicament right now. Still going on with families without fathers and young men out here in the street killing each other. The same dilemma that we faced back when we established and organized the Million Man March still exists, and still we have those attempts to destroy our community and destroy our young Black males.
Councilmember Hawkins, are we Black men? Are we better now? I don't mean better off, but I mean, are we better now than we were in 1995? Are the 31-year-olds in 2025 better than the 31-year-olds of 1995? Are their circumstances better? Are they? What would you say?
Harold, you are dropping the bomb with these questions. That didn't leave no room for hiding, trying to duck it. That's a serious question. Wow. You got to remember, at that time, I was a couple of years out of prison from Lorton. I can say, I think, Reverend Wilson, your visits to Lorton when you came was so inspirational for a man like me and so many other men.
Mm-hmm.
I believe we were overcoming crack then. Now is more of a vicious cycle to keep Black men around the 30-year age down. But I think we are better because we have more opportunities to advance ourselves with all this social technology. So I would say we're better. I would.
Yeah. Where do you think we are still lacking?
The connection between our youth who are creating situations for themselves that create detention facilities and long-term sentences. I think the disconnect with Black men and youth, how we get them to respect and understand that the more at a young age they create criminal activity and situations where they're detained and removed from our society, the likelihood of them overcoming those challenges at a later age is slim to none, and they'll continue to go through our judicial system. That's the challenge I believe is impacting us the most from my own experiences.
What do you think, Reverend Wilson, when you look at the young Black men of 2025 when compared to those young Black men of 1995? And let me just say, Reverend Wilson, you were a young Black man there too. You were older than we were, but that was 30 years ago.
That's right.
You were still hitting your stride.
That's right. Well, I think, the one thing that we did have in 95, much more than we have now, was a sense of community. As again, I must reemphasize how our communities have been shattered, and we're seeing the repercussions of that right now. But I think that a key to all of it is connecting with our young people, not running from them, but running to them. and finding the ways to educate them and let them know who they are. You know, I went over Anacostia High School maybe about 4 years ago. And of course, you got the Teach America, people who are teaching now who don't look like us, 75% white teachers at Anacostia High School. And she said, we got about 60 delinquents that don't even come to school. I said, well, tell them Reverend Wilson wants to meet with them. And she said, they're not going to show up. That morning, all 60 showed up. As they came through the door and were taking their coats off in the cold of winter, I said to them, and you ain't no nigger, you're a child of God. In the next hour, I taught them and gave them knowledge of who they were as beings created in the image and the likeness of God. And you could hear a pin drop for an hour. So that's the kind of education that our young people need. I was on a go-go station started by some young brothers last night at midnight, all go-go, and related to those young people. They asked me what my favorite go-go band was. I said Backyard, and there it was. We communicated for another hour that night, and it was a great coming together. That's the kind of thing. That's why this year's event, Harold, is not just Black men. Mm-hmm. Although a lot of Black women participated, some of the icon women of our history, Rosa Parks was there, Maya Angelou was there, Betty Shabazz was there. But this time around, we cannot afford to just bring our men together. And so we're asking mothers, fathers, sons, daughters, men, all of us coming together. That's what this event is about, to bring all of us together. There are going to be pledges from our young people to the young people, just as Minister Farrakhan did. We're going to pipe Minister Farrakhan's pledge through the sound system to the men. And we're going to talk about atonement. We got everything we need, Harold, except that one thing that keeps evading us, and that is unity as a people.
Well, let's talk about atonement. That was a big issue back in 1995 for the Million Man March. Where is the mindset for humility, for atonement, for thoughtful conversation in the midst of conflict between and amongst Black men, Reverend Wilson? Is that gone?
Atonement is always in order. That's the one thing that keeps us from unifying. You know, as I started this effort 3 months ago, some of the brothers who know some of the dynamics of my interaction with people, they say, well, how can you have this brother working on this, and he has talked against you, against the church, against Union Temple, and all the things that you've tried to do? I said, that's why I have assigned him to work on this. It's about reconciliation. It's about atonement. It's about us coming together. You know, when a person recognizes that they have wronged, and then you give them an opportunity to correct that wrong, that's what we call long suffering. That's what you got to go through some stuff in dealing with our people. You can't give up because somebody didn't do what they should have done. They didn't treat you right. And that's what atonement is all about. And that's what we want to do for parents with their youth with their parents, us with each other. We got some brothers who are involved in this, who are on the planning stages of it, who are beefing with each other. They got to resolve that and get over that so we can be about to get business of unifying and saving our communities and our people.
Councilmember Hawkins, one of the things that I would like to lift up, I think, in this conversation, and we can use Prince George's County and of course the DMV. At that time, Marion Barry was mayor, and it's almost funny to me now, and I'm sure it's funny to all of you, but I'll address this to Councilmember Hawkins, because you are an elected official. You remember that back in 1995, people were saying that Bill Clinton was the first Black president.
Yeah. Yes.
And for those of you who are not old enough to remember any of that, there was a context to that, because Bill Clinton was really the first president who had a connection to Black people that had never been had before in the history of this country. But you are an elected official. You worked for Wayne Curry, who was the first Black Prince George's County executive of Prince George's County. We have a Black governor in the state of Maryland. The chair of the Prince George's County Council is a Black man. And we can go on and on and on about the political wins in the midst of struggle that we've seen just over the past 30 years. Your thoughts about that?
We have advanced considerably, but you have to understand, I come from the experience of a young man working in the Marion Barry Youth Leadership Program. I was in the summer youth program when Kevin Chavis first ran and won. I worked for him. Then I went out to work for Wayne Curry. I think we are making strides, but in all fairness, Marion Barry is in a class all his own. And his days of his membership at Union Temple and listening to Reverend Wilson, I think helped him even from his SNCC days to better understand the calling on his life to serve. If more Black leaders, and I say this unapologetically, if more Black leaders were in services with dynamic faith leaders like Willie Wilson, they would gain the foundation to do more for our people and be unapologetic. I think Black leaders are too apologetic about doing what's right for Black people and the people they serve.
Has the world changed so much, Reverend Wilson, that what Councilmember Hawkins is suggesting makes it that much more difficult for Black leadership to do that?
Well, in that political game, people have to get elected. And of course, they have to collect monies to run a campaign. I think that's a big part for a lot of officials because they take that money and that's the way they get elected. That's who they respond to. Unfortunately, again, as Brother Calvin has said, I think that's why they need to be somewhere where they can hear more information about their about responsibility to us, and to each other. When we talk about responsibility, we got to be responsible to ourselves. And too many of us have not been that, not only in the political arena, but in every aspect of life that we are involved in. We lose and have lost that sense of community, of working together. Our ancestors did it. They showed us how to do it. They built communities, they built banks, they built hospitals, they built everything you can imagine. And they did it by coming together in unity. That's why this event, again, I have to say it's about all of us coming together, not just the men. We can't, at this point in time, which is most critical in terms of, as we look at it, the clock is trying to be turned way back, not just a little bit, but way back on us as a people. And I think we need to turn inward and don't be concerned. We know that the people who are doing what they're doing, they've always done that. And what did our ancestors do? They turned inward. Like Booker T. Washington said, he said, put your bucket down where you are and do something for yourself. And that's what we got to do as a community.
Real briefly, Councilmember Hawkins, talk to me about what the message for Black women is some 30 years later from this Million Man March.
Their role, their responsibility, their walk with Black men in America is more important than ever. Don't give up on us. Continue to walk with us. Continue to be beside us. Lead where you need to lead. But we're in this together. We're not leaving them behind. And we don't want them to leave us behind. It's time for the Black family to take hold of what's going on in our country, and Black women play a very important part. You heard Reverend Wilson speak about Maya Angelou, Rosa Parks, Dr. Betty Shabazz. I remember all of them at the first Million Man March. So as he said, we're in this together. It's the spirit of that love and that hope and that faith and all the atonement we need to get to the moment where we can move forward with this guy we have in the White House. Never was there a time like today that we all need to be together, not just the men, the women as well.
Reverend Wilson, I'll let you have a final word. What do you believe is the legacy of the Million Man March?
The legacy of the Million Man March was that spirit that brought us together despite all the obstacles. And believe you me, as you know, there were many obstacles. There were individuals who thought they should have been the leader and who fought against it because they weren't until the last moment they came on board. We had to deal with all of that. But at the bottom of it all, God blessed us to come together as never before. And I think I've pondered the question, why did God do that? To show us what we can do. We can come together. We can put aside the differences. We can work together to solve our own problems. And that's the main thing, I think, that came out of it, that spirit of unity that said we're going to rise above all of this. I remember Dr. Haidt, as you say, talk about the women. Dr. Haidt stood up before that almost 2 million black men. And she said to those men, even as those detractors tried to tell her, don't participate, you're going to lose your funds for the only black building owned down, black people downtown. She stood up and told those black men, I am here because of you. And I think that speaks to the spirit that was there that day that we have to engender once again so that we can be about rising as a community. And I would say finally that economic empowerment is very much a part of that. And we are looking at ways that we can do that. We have a think tank that we have developed that we're going to be talking about how we begin to create money's wealth among our own people on a family, individual basis, as well as collectively.
I want to thank both of you for taking some time to talk about this momentous time, not only the memories, but also where we are right now with Black men, the anniversary of the Million Man March and Anacostia Unifest. Thank you both so very, very much. Reverend Willie Wilson, Prince George's County Councilman Calvin Hawkins. I want to leave you with another excerpt from the pledge that Minister Louis Farrakhan shared on that fateful day as we close out. That is the Daily Drum for this Tuesday, October 7th. I'm Harold Fisher. Good night.
Say your name. We'll never again use the B word to describe any female, but particularly my own black sister. Say your name. Pledge from this day forward that I will not poison my body with drugs or that which is destructive to my health